Well, the rising cost of living and the COVID-19 virus rank among Singaporeans' top concerns in a post-pandemic world. That's according to a two-year study by the Institute of Policy Studies of over 2,000 respondents. It has been tracking the well-being of Singaporeans over the pandemic, as well as their outlook towards the future. Let's take a closer look. Inflation is the biggest concern, with more than 2 in 5 respondents. Let's take a look there. With more than 2 in 5 respondents worrying that the cost of utilities, food and healthcare may rise this year. More than a third of respondents also fear contracting the virus as concerns of a new COVID-19 wave grow. Worries over job security are also creeping back up due to recession fears. And that's seeing a more pragmatic focus on immediate livelihood needs. 48% of respondents want support to cope with the rise in the GST. 45% identify utilities, daily expenses and education as areas where help is needed. While 44% call for immediate support for businesses, especially to hire Singaporeans. Researchers hope the data will help guide future policies.
You do need to have do enough to ensure people are confident that their needs will be met, that there are enough resources around to be able to ensure that if there are increases in prices, and these price increase can be curtailed to some extent, the confidence that healthcare will still be affordable.
When it comes to trust in the government, the study shows that about 2/3 of respondents believe the government can help the economy bounce back and emerge stronger and more resilient than before. While 6 in 10 also believe that Singapore has the best possible fourth-generation leader, Deputy Prime Minister Lawrence Wong, to help it navigate its post-COVID-19 economic recovery.
DPM Wong has been quite effective in addressing the emerging social cohesion issues we've seen in the last 2 years during the pandemic, such as race and religion matters and other social integration matters.
Respondents also identify several important lessons to be learned, like the need for institutional resilience, which includes having strong finances and a good healthcare system, being self-sufficient, and being prepared for an unexpected crisis. Younger respondents also emphasize the importance of social resilience, such as valuing harmony and being socially responsible. To better prepare Singaporeans for endemic living with COVID-19, researchers suggest reminding individuals to keep that end goal in mind instead of focusing on daily case numbers. For more on this, we're joined by Dr. Mike Ho, whom you heard earlier. He's Associate Director of IPS Social Lab. Dr. Ho, one of the findings that was striking, people in their 20s and 40s feel their mental health declined due to the pandemic, but the elderly report feeling better. Why this, and what does that mean in terms of policies when we look ahead?
For younger respondents in our study, they were actually more likely to experience deteriorating mental health compared to older respondents. There could be several reasons for this, right? So first, it could be because of the very unique life stage that younger respondents are in. They are at a stage where they are about to form a core sense of identity. They are about to start their foray into their careers, explore their life directions, formulate life goals, trying to figure out where they wish to go, what they wish to do. But obviously, the pandemic has disrupted many people's plans. So at this stage where it has already been traditionally quite uncertain for youths, the pandemic has definitely added on further stress. And this could be especially the case when one tries to go about evaluating one's options and directions. For those who are middle-aged, we also found that they also were experiencing a lower level of mental well-being compared to other age groups as well. And this, the rationale for this, or rather the plausibility of this, is actually quite intuitive, because this middle-age group respondents most likely, when they are married, have dependents, they have young children at home, or the elderly that they need to take care of. The rising cost of living certainly would be a challenge in that situation in terms of their financial ability to steer through this difficult period. So definitely more may need to be done to support this group of people. And especially for the youths, it may not be as simple as extending financial support in that sense, but it could perhaps take the shape of helping youths generate a sense of identity and shared purpose, allowing their voices to be heard and providing opportunities to co-create pathways, right?
Social development of children was also a key concern that popped up in your study. First, explain to me what that means, and if that is a real concern, can anything be done about it?
Yeah. In general, due to the pandemic, we have seen the introduction of home-based learning, working from home. Even with the return to schools, children have had to abide by various safe distancing measures. These measures were certainly needed at that time to protect our children. And naturally, many experts have already pointed out that this form of altered nature of social interactions would have an impact on the social skills of young children. Even with the fact that we have to interact while wearing a mask on, that can interact our interpretations of expressions. So this is something that educators will need to especially pay attention to. But hopefully with our society opening up and resuming our pre-COVID activities, these skills can slowly be learned and these challenges will be overcome. But one thing to note also for youths for youths especially, there could be some kind of missed opportunities that they may have not experienced because of the pandemic, right? So, for example, local university students sometimes look forward to an overseas exchange at some point during their university life. They look forward to a graduation trip or being able to attend in-person graduation ceremonies. These are quite important markers. So, but it's also important to bear in mind that it is this shared experience of this generation that in itself is a distinctive marker of this generation. So it is actually quite important for us to recognize that as well, that as we go about the different life stages, people, as they transit in their different life stages, how they construct an identity around those life stages.
Dr. Ho, I'm personally interested to ask you this. Now, it's easy to say we've lost out, we are weakened, we have suffered from this, but the flip side is we could say we have learned a great deal. I mean, there are as many stories about resilience, learning hard lessons, being able to, a gap year or exchange trips, they do not define a university education. There are many ways in which one can be educated. Did you hear any responses from this younger generation saying that, in fact, the COVID-19 pandemic was a good thing for them?
Right. So the COVID-19 pandemic has definitely affected different people in different ways. Something that we noted from our study was that the younger people actually appeared to prioritize lessons to do with social resilience. So the COVID-19 pandemic has actually revealed to them that it is important for Singapore, at least, to learn to become a more compassionate and inclusive society. So in that sense, different generations and different cohorts of people would have learned different things throughout the pandemic. And it is important to capitalize on these different strengths and interests of our people.
Thanks very much indeed for joining us, Dr. Mike Ho from the IPS Social Lab.